Okay, guys, before I start the new lecture, I will be happy to get your feedback, or if you have a question concerning what we have so far discussed in the first lecture. So anyone had an idea, want to share it with me, a feedback or a question, go ahead and do it. Okay, let me ask maybe one or two person here. Braden? Good afternoon, Braden. Can you hear me, Braden? Are you here? Yeah, maybe I have something in the chat. Hello, I can hear you. Okay. Do you have any feedback you want to share with us, or based on what we have already discussed in lecture 1? And do you have time to maybe to go ahead with the lecture 1? Maybe Braden doesn't have a mic, so Braden, if you want to share anything, go ahead and write down in the chat. So, Jason, how are you, Jason, today? Jason, do you have a mic? Okay. Okay, Herman Deep. What about Herman Deep? Do you have a mic also, or you don't have a mic?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Perfect. Tell me, do you have something you want to share with us today concerning lecture 1, or nothing to share?
No, everything was good.
Have you already have time to go ahead and review the lecture?
I didn't. No, I didn't saw the second lecture slides. I think you didn't post it yet, maybe, but I saw the lecture for one slide.
No, I have problem with device settings now. Just give me a second. Hi. I'm not hearing you, Harmandeep.
Hello.
Yeah, I said, do you? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I go through the lecture 1 slides again, but are you asking for the lecture 2 slides?
Okay. No worry, it's okay.
Yeah, okay.
The last one today will be before we start. Kerson. Kerson, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Perfect. Tell me, do you have time to go with the lecture?
I looked through my notes, but I didn't look through the lecture again. But we didn't cover too much, like.
No, we don't cover too much. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. So.
Okay, Kerson, based on what we have already discussed the last time, can you tell me again what is a class and what is an object?
Sure. So class is a template for an object, which is like. Do you want me to go into detail, or should I just leave it there?
The stage is for you, so it's up to you.
Okay. Well, classes are like templates, and they have the templates of they have like variable templates, and they also have function templates. And then you can take objects are basically copies of that class, but then they have individual like variable values.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was the other question? Or no, was that it?
No, the point that concerning the main what you have already done, or what you have already shared with us so far, is about what you mean by classes. But what is the main difference? Or you said it is a template. So what is an object in this case?
Oh, an object is in. Oh.
Yeah. Go ahead. There is a keyword I want to hear it from you concerning what is an object.
Okay. Okay. Let me start again then.
No, no. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, maybe it's so classes have individual, or no, classes. A class is like a set, or like a common thing. So like you can have a class called class human, and like we're all humans. We all have the same like functions and stuff, but we're all different in our way. So that's kind of like what a class is in programming, but objects are individual instances of those classes, and they have variables and methods.
So it is an instance of a class.
Yeah, an instance of a class.
Yeah, this is what I want to hear. So,
okay.
Yeah. So a class is a set of attributes and methods. They are talking about the same concept. This is very important to say it, because they are going to describe the same concept. An object, it is an instance of a class, which means that different objects can have different values for the same class, for the same attribute that are defined in this class, in this case. Okay, Alisa. Alisa, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Perfect. So can you give me an example about object classes rather than what Kirsten has already shared with us?
No, I can't. Not right now.
Why?
Because I've just sort of looked at the lecture notes. I haven't really.
No. We are talking about a very general concept about the classes and object. Forget about the lecture. So if it's clear to you, you can give an example. If not, I can go ahead and redefine it for you again.
If you could redefine it for me.
Okay. Okay, Alisa, you and me are human beings, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So normally, if I ask you to describe what is a human being, what do you say?
I say they're a type of mammal, I guess.
So let's say it's something abstract, something abstract. Let's say let us use this word abstract. Okay, how you can go ahead and define it more? So this abstract name human being, how you can define it?
They walk on two legs. They have hair on their head.
Wait.
Yeah.
So they walk.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a method they do it, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead.
They have two eyes.
Perfect. They have eyes. So eyes. And there is color for their eyes, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So and they have a skin color. So there is a skin color for them.
Mm-hmm.
So and they also eat, laugh. So let's summarize what we have already said now. So we said human being eat, laugh, walk, has eye color, has skin color, and maybe has weight, has height, has length. So these methods and parameters or attributes, they are describing the same concept, which is a human being. So we can go ahead and redefine it again. So human being is set of methods and attributes or parameter describing the same concept. Is it clear now?
Yep.
Okay, so you are an object from a class a human being, and I also another object from a class of human being, because both of us have eye color, but the value of the eye color differ from me and you.
Mm-hmm.
So which means that we have eyes with our colors, but each one has its own value. This is why we said it is an instance, which means that they will have all the methods and attributes that they are already defined in this class. However, they will have different values for the attributes. And also they can call this function later in different manner, which means that we both of us work, but not in the same way we work. So this is what I mean by object and the classes in this case. So me and you are objects from a class, human beings, as we have already defined it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me another example?
Another example of a class?
Class and objects?
Bugs?
Bugs?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is a class, and what is the object in this case?
Like a ladybug?
Okay, that's perfect. You are correct. You are correct. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah, you
Okay.
give us a good example.
Mm.
So, thank you so much, Elisa. Let's take another one today. I'm opening this discussion for all people who are here and who are going all later to watch this video, even though. So it's better to make this discussion because this will clarify the main concepts before we'll go further in this course. So I have another question concern. Okay, me and Elisa today, we have already discussed what mean by also Kearson, what mean by classes and objects, and we give different examples about object and the classes. So, but the point now, why we need such kind of concepts, OOP concept, object and the classes in programming. So we talked about it from abstract point of view, what we mean by classes and what we mean by objects. However, why when we are going to write a code, we should have classes and object when we are writing this code? Why we need this concept in programming? Kunal, are you here? Do you have mic, Kunal? What about you, Nigan fan?
Hi, yeah, I'm here.
Hey.
Yeah.
So have you already heard my question, what I said, after we have already talked about what we mean by classes and objects? I said, okay, so we now can understand what is classes and what is objects. However, why we need this concept in programming?
I think to have like a class which a set of all the attributes for creating object, and all the object have the same attribute of the class, so it would be more convenient to reuse the code. Like you already have all the attribute in the class,
Yeah,
so just reuse it for like another class or for all the object. It would be convenient.
Yes. So there is very important issue yet you have already mentioned now concerning reuse of the code. So the main reason for you using this concept object and classes is how we can reuse the code. Can you tell me in a very simple word how we can reuse the code when we have object and classes?
Reuse. I think like I think I need more words to put it.
No, go as simple as you can. No worry.
So I think like instead of you write another set of code with all like the attribute similar to that class, you just call that class again, which has all the attributes in it, and you can just call it. So you have the attribute you need without needing to recode the whole program, like something like that.
Okay, let rephrase what you are saying in a more simpler word. So suppose I have a class X and I have another class Y. And in X, I defined a method named sum that will take two attributes A and B and return A plus B. So in class Y, if I need to make a summation for two numbers, do I need to create a new method, I name it sum, or I can reuse the method that's being already defined in X?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think that is reusability of the class X, so you call it in class Y.
So we said we have X and Y, and we have a sum. The name of the method is sum that we have already declared in X. And now we can go ahead and reuse the sum, only calling the method sum. We don't have to go again and redefine the method. So this is one of the way, in this case, to reuse the code. Another main motivation or main reason for having an OOP, reuse of the code, one of them, that based on this example, me and Nigan, we have already discussed it now. Another one is we are going to organize our code in a way that all the methods and attributes that they are talking about the same concept, which is a class, we will be in a class, and I'd rather have a huge amount of methods and the classes in the one file. So you are grouping them based on these methods that talk about this topic and these methods that talk about these topics. So we are organizing and we are going to organize our code in order later we can reuse any part in a systematic way. Okay. So today we will go ahead and talk more about class methods, constructors, and modifiers. So let's start first with Java class methods. I think that I'm quite sure that most of you know what is Java method or what is method in general. So some people that they are not familiar with Java. By the way, I received some email from some student asking me about, do we have to have an advanced programming skills in Java? I replied by email, no. Why I reply no? Because I expect you all finish structured programming, even though it will not be in Java, which means that you know what I mean by variable, what you mean by type of variable, what you mean by method, what you mean by calling a method. So either you take before a course in Java or C++ or other programming language, these basic concepts will be the same. So no advanced knowledge is needed in this course in Java. However, you should be familiar with the basics of structured programming, which is somehow similar in different programming languages. So, a Java method, as far as most of you know about what I mean by programming, in different programming courses about methods. So we should have, I'm sorry. We should have a method name when we declare a method. And then we will have a parameters, which is the input of this method. And then we will have a return type. And sometimes we don't have a return type, so we don't expect a return but here we expect a return. And here we'll have a modifier. We'll talk about it later about modifier, which is more access control, or which is how we can control who is going to make the access for this method. We'll talk later about this modifier. So if I will go now to, again, in the classes. So in the classes, we will have two main types of methods, either static or non-static method. So static method, it is a method that is not related to an object in a class, like here. For example, let's see, I here declare a class. As far as you know, all you are now familiar with how we can create a class. So we will have a class named main, and then we have a method named my method. And this method, for example, here, just make a print out hello world. So in the main, again, in any Java program, we should have at least one class that has the main method. I said this is in the last lecture. The main method, it is the first method because normally when you are going to create a project in Java or another programming language, you will have different files. like when we talk about OOP, we'll have different files that maybe this file have one class or more. But however you want, when you run your program, your compiler is going to run one of your files. So which file is going to be the starter one is the file that include the main method. So we should have at least one file that has a main method or a class that has a main method. So here in the main method, you can see I call the function. So I call the function. So we know that here we declare and define the method. What is the name of the method? If there is a return, yes, no. What it is, static or non-static method. And if there is here, we talked about modifier. We will talk about it later during today's lecture. So if there is no modifier, which means this is the default one. And what will be the body of the method, which means what we expect to execute, or which statement we are going to execute when we will run this method. Here, I call the method, so I execute the method. So when I execute, it will go ahead and execute a statement here. The question now, because we have a static, as you can see, when we call a method, we didn't call a method using a special object. So a static method is a method that we don't have to create an object from a class to go ahead and do it. However, the non-static method, like what we can see here, so returning back here to the class, so we will have a public class main. Again, we have here a static method. I name it here my static method. It do this print out, and then I declare another method. But you can see here it is not static one. So it is not a static one. So even if it is not static one, so and also it has no return. So if I return now in the main method to call these methods, so I can call the first method, which is the static one, without an object. And then if I want to call my public method, I should create a method. I name it object or my object, and then my object dot the method in order to call it, because again it is non-static one. So static method I can call it without any object, and when we have already learned before programming, normally we have most of the time it is static methods because we can call them without having an object. However, if we declare a method and it is non-static one in a class, it should be we are going to call this method after we create an object in this case. So if you have a multiple class here, so we'll have, for example, here 2 classes. By the way, we can create more than one class in the same file, or each one can be in a standing alone file. So suppose that we create 2 different classes. The first class is main. So it has 2 methods, full throttle one, and then we will have the speed one. So, and the other method, it has a main method. Sorry, the other class, it has a main method, which is the class second, main. So here in the main one, so we will have my car equal new main. So, and then in order to call the first method and the second method that is being already declared here, we create an object from the same type of the method where it's being declared. So because this is, as we said, it is non-static one, so we have to create an object from the same class in order to call them. So either you are calling the method, the non-static method, from the same class they were declared, or from another class. In both cases, you want to create an object from the same class where this class is being already where this method is being already declared. The first example here, we call the method my public method in main method, like here, in main class, and here we call it from another class. However, in both cases, because it is non-static one, we have to create an object from the same type where the method is being already declared. Okay. By the way, this is one of the examples about reuse the code, because we have two total different classes. We have two classes. In the first classes, we have two methods. In the second one, we don't have this method, but we need to call them to use them. So in this case, we just go ahead and create an object from this method where they were already declared, and then we call them. Okay, what about Java constructors? We talked about it the last time, Java constructors. Anyone have an idea why we need Java constructor? Ayman Arif, Ayman. Ayman, do you have a mic?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. How are you today?
I'm good. What about yourself?
Yeah, good. A little bit. I'm okay with my teeth.
Oh.
This is why I was late today. So tell me, what is a constructor?
Java constructors.
Yes.
I know that you can create like multiple objects with the Java constructors, and like you can use them to initialize the objects.
We can. Okay, so first, it is a method or a variable. So what is a constructor?
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, what you said is correct. So you said that we use constructor to create an object from a special class. 100% correct. So what is a constructor that you use to create an object? It is a method, it is an attribute, it is a variable. What is a constructor?
Is it a method?
Yes, it is a method. So it is a special method. We can say this. So it is a very special method that we will use it to create an object from this class.
Yeah.
Do you agree in this definition?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so Java class constructors, as I said, we can see it, a constructor is a special method that used to initialize objects or create objects. And normally, when we go like this method, this constructor should have the same name as a method, so as a class, same name. So, and we will have two, default one and a parameterized one. The default one, like here, we don't have to declare this method. Normally, when we are going to call a method, we first declare it and define it, then we can go ahead and call this method. However, here, we are not going to declare this method. We are not going to create this method, because by default, all classes will have a default constructor. We don't need to create this constructor, but we can later parameterize this constructor if we need to do this. So if you can see here, when I go ahead to create my object, which is from a class main, I said a new main, which is in this case a new main, which is a new object we created or initialized using new main. So it is a method. We can see from this braces it is a method. However, the name is the same name of the class, and we didn't define it before we will use it. Here, for example, this method speed, before we go ahead and call this method, we have to define it, define the parameter, if there is a parameter, or if there is no parameter, what expect to do, what is the statement to execute when we call this method. However, here, we don't have to do it, because it is a must that all classes will have a default one. So the default one is the one that will be automatically will exist automatically whenever in a class we created it, and it will go ahead and create the object based on the default values of the parameter that you have already have it in the class. When I create the class here, when I go and make this implementation, I said integer x equal 5. So we can see that here, that in this class, we declare x equal 5, which means that any object later we are going to create it here, it will have an attribute x, which is equal 5, because I define a class attribute and give it a value 5. So if I go here to print system.out.println my object.x, it will print for me print the value of x, which is 5 in this case. Because the default constructor will create an object and assign attributes as you define by default and when you create and declare your class in this case. The parameterized constructor in this case will be, we can go ahead and let's say overload. Do you know, I think that most of you that they heard this word overload before. Anyone know about method overload?
I mean, we went over it in
Yeah,
last semester,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, can you tell us again what you mean by method overload?
Well, at least function overloading is like when you have multiple functions with the same name, but they have different parameters, right?
Yes.
And so I guess you can have multiple different, oh yeah, that's right, you're talking about this last class. You can have multiple different constructors. So you can overload constructors, but they have to have different parameters.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kirsten. Yes, 100%, perfect. So as Kirsten said, that we can, when we talk about method overloading, which means that we will have the same different versions of the same method, which is the same name but different versions. And for each version, we can have different parameters, which means that, like here, we set the default one. It has no parameter, the default constructor, like what we did here. So we can go ahead and call it, and then we will assign the value of objects as we have already defined. Here, we create another version, we name it, parameterize it, we send parameter to it, we said y, it will take y, and x equal y. And then when I create the object using this version of the constructor, so I give it here a value. So this value, according to the code here, x equal y. So I will assign to this object a variable or attribute x equal 5 in this case. So I can also go ahead and create another object, main, my object, equally new main. let's say name it my object 2, 10. So in this case, when I go, so I have two objects now. I have my object and I have another object, I name it my object 2. As we said from the beginning, that we can create different objects from the same class. And each object has the same parameter. So both of them, they have x because we here declare x in this class. This has x and this has x. However, each x value will differ. We will not have the same. Here, this object will have x equal 5, and this object will have x equal 10. Why? Because when we create this object, we pass the parameter for the constructor 5 for the first one, and the second one 10. So we need to have a parameterized constructor normally in order that to have this difference between different objects. Because if we didn't define a parameterized constructor as we did here, which is an overloading for the default one, all objects that we can use it using the constructor one, we will have the same value, and later we are going to assign different values for them. So normally we have to parameterize the constructor in order that later, whenever we create object using this constructor, we will have different values for different objects in this case. This is another example that we have in this class two parameters. So I will have this parameter as the second parameter. The first one is named model year and the second one is model name. And here I parameterize, I create another version from the constructor. This will take two values. And I said whenever they take these values, assign these values to the two attributes here. So here I create my car, new main 961 Mustang. So in this case, if I go ahead and print out the my car.model year and my car model name, I can see the values that I have already passed to the constructor that they will get here as an output. So normally, when you later will go to start write your own program, you will define different parameters here. You will not do like what I did here. I just put this example to let you do it because somehow it is meaningless to do it like this. Normally, when we talk about object, they should have different values, or why I have to create a new object if it has the same value like the object before. So this is why whenever we declare different variables, we should have a parameterized constructor that include all these variables. And when we use this constructor to construct an object, so we are going to use these parameters, different parameter based on different object values for these parameters to create different objects based on our needs for different programs that we are going to deal with this. I have a question now. I don't know if you have an answer, but it's good to have. It's out of the lecture, but it came to my mind. It came to my mind now. So a constructor is a special method. Again, a constructor is a special method that we are going to use it in order to create an object, as we have already said. So do we have a destructor, like we have constructor, destructor, which is another method to delete an object that we have already? Yes, no. I will give you 1 minute to think about it. In Java, should we have a destructor to delete an object, since we have a constructor that we create an object for using it? Think about it. Anyone have? Okay, I will give you just a hint in this. So in Java, we don't have destructor, and this is one of the difference between Java and C++. Because whenever you finish your program, there is with your compiler something we name it garbage collector. Why we need to destroy objects after we finish using them? Because when you create an object, it takes space from your memory. It will take a space. So if somehow you are going to finish your program, or you're not using you are not using this object anymore, so you are going to free your memory, so you are going to destroy. But there is a garbage collector that will do this work, which is part from your compiler work or responsibility. So this is why we don't have destructor here, not like C++ where we have a destructor there. So no need to have a destructor in this case. We just talk about constructor here in this case. Okay, that continues this. Now let's go ahead for Java modifier. Java modifier is, we talk about as that we can see so much public here. Most of the examples before, public. And sometimes if there is nothing, it can be like here. It can rename it default in this case. Anyone has any idea why we use this public or something like this? I will pick somebody. No, if you don't, I will help you. Don't worry. Alex, my.
Yes.
How are you, Alex?
Doing good.
Do you have an idea why we have this public or private or what's this?
Not sure, but does it allow you allows you to like I'm not sure.
Sorry, what you thought?
I'm not sure about this.
You're not sure about it. Okay. Okay, Alex.
Yes.
So do you believe that sometimes that we should have such kind of access control? What do you mean by access control? Let's tell you. When you're going to share a file here online using any online storage tool or program, there is something access control. Either you put it public for all people, or you will let somebody based on a list to go to have an access. Is it correct?
Yes. So it makes it public for the code, so others can have an access to it, or?
It is not only others, which means that it also in other classes, because when you are going to write a Java program, it will be many classes that we have to deal with it. We will not only have one class, we will have a set of classes. And since we will have these classes, we are going to deal with different classes and different methods and different attributes also. So you, in your code, suppose you will have a class X and Y and Z, and you have attribute in a class X and attribute in class Y and attribute in class Z. And then there are some attributes in a class X that they should not be modified by object from a class Y, because if they are going to be modified, they will affect the sequence of your whole program. We will see it later why we need more modifier. Today we talk about maybe about encapsulation before we go to the practice work. So, but I want you in this level to understand that we will have different modifier, different access control, and how you can access this. And this is very important also when maybe next lecture we'll talk about inheritance. And one of the main strengths about OOP about this inheritance, because inheritance also will give us a reuse of the code. We'll talk about it next lecture. Because for us now, the reuse of the code, that there is a method in class X, without defining it again in a class Y, I can just call it in Y using an object from a class X. But also sometimes, if I have a class X and then I can create a child from X that will inherit all the classes attribute rather than writing the code again. We'll talk about it later, maybe about inheritance next time. But this access control can make a restriction between different classes about how they can access the attribute and the method of these classes between each other, and also between classes and subclasses. So this is very important to make such kind of control in order to keep your data consistent. And we will see different examples to talk about what we mean by having this consistent of this data or attributes or methods for different classes. But let us now understand more what different modifiers we will have it. And later we will have more exercises to understand more where I have to use this modifier here or we don't have to use this modifier here. So access, we have two types of groups. Access modifier, which is the access level. And you have a non-access modifier, we'll talk about it also. So let's start with the access modifier one. So the access modifier, we will have modifier for the class itself. We will have two types, public and default. Default, which means that we don't give it a name for the access like here. This is, we have a modifier public for this class. I see here, we don't have any modifier, so it was default one. So returning here, so we will have a public one, the class is accessible by any other classes. So this is accessible, this class, by any other classes. And we have the default one, the class is only accessible by classes in the same package. Also, we will take later during this course about the package, but but I want you to understand now in this level that a package is a set of classes. So we will have a class that is set of attribute and method. This is one class, and set of classes will make a package. So if it is a default, which means that any class in the same package can access it. If we put it public, any class can access it with even it will be in the same package or outside this package. The default that which means that you don't mention, just start writing class X. So it is a default one in this case, which can be accessed by the class in the same package in this case. So for attributes and methods and constructor, again, constructor, we said it is they are special methods. So for attributes and methods and constructor, you can use one of these modifiers. So for the class, we have only two, public and default. For the attribute and method and constructor, we will have public, private, protected, default, 4. So public, which means that this attribute or this class can be accessed by any class. Returning here to this example here. So where is this? Yeah, no, maybe we just use it here. Yeah. Here we have two classes, class main and the class second. And since it is public, so we can create an object from this. And this is also, it's also public, so we can also access here. So we can have public one, the class is accessible by any other classes. Private, when we talk about this attribute, they are private, they're only accessible by the declared class, so they're only private for this class. So you can't access these attribute outside this class, you can access this attribute only for inside this class. Protected, it can be accessible in the same package and in the subclasses. Again, we will talk about later about subclasses when we talk about inheritance. So far, I want you to understand that when we talk about protected, we are talking about this accessing these attributes or methods or constructors in either in this all class in the same package or in the subclasses in this case. And default, somehow default and public always will be similar to each other, which means that public class is accessible by other classes, as we said. Here, they're also accessible by other classes in the same package only. Let's take different example for most of them. So public, we here have two classes. So the first class, we name it main, the second one is second. Here we define this first, second, third, fourth attribute. Fourth attribute, all these attributes are public. So here, when we go to create an object, so and this class also public, so we can create an object here. We create an object from type main because it is accessible one. And then we can, in the class second, we can access the public attributes because we said they are public one. And the output of this code will be like this. We will not get an error, and we will get the output here, the name email, base what we have already defined here in the main class. So let's go an example when it is a private one now. So if it is a private one, we will have a class, we name it main, as we have already, but you see here, private. So having this private one, so still we can access them. Why? Anyone have? Think about it. So go ahead, return here. You can see here that we will public, all public, and then here we create an object, and then we can access them, and here we could. Go ahead.
So I'm thinking, since the class is public and you created an instance of that class when you said main my object equals new main, now you have permission to access those attributes since you have an instance of that class, and that instance of that class has access to those attributes. Is that
Perfect.
right?
Yes. So what will be the, so in this case, because we have already created an object from this class, as you said, and this object, this class, we can create an object from this because its access is public. So according to definition of the private, so it is only can accessible within the declared one. But there is another point here you should take care about it. That the scope of the class. Here, Gerson, are you still here?
Yeah, I'm here.
See, here we go ahead with the class. So the scope of the class, we start a class here, we close it here. Here we start another class and we close it here. So we still from the other class can make an access for them. First, we can create an object because this class has a public access, so we create an object from it. And we can access this object outside this class because it is public one. However, here, we create an object to access this, but within this class main. So if we will go like here, outside the class, even though we'll create an object for them, we can't access this attribute.
Okay, so because, wait, can you go to the next slide again? I kind of want to let's look at it again. So since it's, wait, so it's a class within a class?
Yes, here, this is a class, independent one. We finished the scope of the class.
Yeah,
and this
then
is
that's a second class.
Yeah, this is a second class. Because these attribute, first, this class is public, so we can access it and create an object. We create the object.
Yeah.
And these attributes, they are public, so we can access. In both cases, we need an object to access this attribute. But either we can access this attribute using this object in another class because they are public attribute, or it is a must to access them in the same class because they are private one. We can't access them going outside to another class in this case.
Okay.
So I want you to understand concerning the class scope. This is very important here. So the class is, yeah,
like,
go ahead.
This the second part, public class or public static void main, that's the method, right?
Yeah, but it is in which class? It is in the main class.
Yeah, it's like the main. It's a
here
method of the.
Yeah, here this is the main method. It is in the second class, not in the main class.
Okay, so that method in the other one is actually part of the class. So
Yes.
that's why it's able to access it. Okay.
Yes. So the private one, as we based on the definition, we said that public is a public when we talk about the attribute method and constructor. We said when it is a public one, the class is accessible by any other classes. The code is only accessible within the declared class. This is a very important one. So we can't access a private code or a private attribute or a private method out of the scope where they are being declared and defined. So here, because they are public, we can go to another class and access them. Here, because they are private, we can't access them using an out another class. We should stay in the same class. So now what about protected one? So protected, this extend, again, we will talk in detail about inheritance. But I need to describe what I mean by modifiers before I go to the inheritance. So again, when we talk about protected, the code only accessible in the same package and subclasses. Here, it is so if I want to make a ranking for them, I can say public here, private here, based on how much they are restricted. Public, no restriction. Private, 100% restricted. Protected is between, which means that still this is a class, we name it person, and this is another class, we name student. These attributes, they are protected one, so we can access these attributes in another class. However, this class is a subclass from person. It is not another class. So if it is another class, it is not extended, we cannot access. So we can, if it is protected, we can access. However, we can access in another subclass. What is a subclass? It is a class inherited from the main class. We will talk later about what we mean by inheritance. So far, you should understand that extends can be used to talk about inheritance here. So a class extends person. So because this class is a subclass of the main class, we can go ahead and access the protected attribute. But in all cases, if these attributes they are not static, we can't access them without an object from the same method, from the same class. So now, if it is non-static attributes, so we need an object for them. So, and if there is an object for them, so we have to double check the modifier of this attribute. Public, private, protected. Public, no restriction. Private, there is a restriction. You cannot access these attributes outside the class where they are declared, even though you create an object because they are private. Protected, you can access these attributes outside this class. However, there is a condition. This class where you intend to access these attributes in this class, it should be a child or a subclass for the main class where these attributes are defined. So I have a question. Can a static attribute be protected or a private one? So we said attribute can be static or non-static. And we said if it is non-static, they can be public, private, protected, and we can make a restriction to access them. We said static attribute or static method can be accessed without an object. So can we have a protected or private static method or static attribute? Is this possible in Java? Who will give me an answer? We will take +5 bonus on the assignment. You have.
Wait, let me. No, I was going to answer.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay.
I was thinking. I think yes, or yes. I think a static method or static attributes can also be protected or private, since just because it can be accessed without an object doesn't mean it has to be accessed without like an object from a different class. So like you can access them through the same class, but you don't need to have an object. But if you're trying to access them from a different class, even if you don't have an object, like it doesn't mean you should, like you have to, if it's static, it has to be accessed without a object.
So
from, like,
wait. Yes, before you just let us rephrase it to understand more what you are saying. So first, yes, no, and then if it is yes, tell me why. If no, so it is yes or no. Yes, we can have a static method and a variable protected or private.
I would say yes.
Perfect. So why yes now?
I would say yes because if it's static, that means in that class where it's defined, if it's protected or private, let's say it's a private static method. So it's static, but it can still be accessed from that class without an object.
Okay, first, what you have already said, 100% correct. So having static variable or static method doesn't mean we can't make an access control to it.
Yeah, it doesn't mean
because
it has to be
this is access control is more related to the class level, which means that if it is a static variable, no object is needed to use this variable, or no object is needed to call this method. However, if we make a modifier for them, there is an access control for them based on the class level. So if it is a private one, they will be used only without, if it is a method, it can be used without an object, however, within the scope of the same method in the same class.
Yeah.
So yes, we still can have this modifier because it is a class control level, So it doesn't mean being static, we can't make a control for this. Yes, we can control as the same manner as we make a control for non-static variable or non-static methods.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Kirsten. You are perfect. You will get the +5.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so let's return here. Okay, now what about non-access modifier? So what we have already discussed so far, public, private, protected, when we talk about attribute and method and constructor. And when we talk about the classes, public or default, it is talk about access modifiers. We categorize them an access modifier because they are talk or they control the access of this attribute or this class or this method or this constructor. So still we have another modifier, we name it non-access. So why they name it? It's not about access directly from other classes, however, more restriction about the behavior of this class. Maybe I think so the behavior is a correct word to use it here. So if I said it is a final class, so which means that later if you want to inherit, again, I will talk about inheritance later more deeply. So if I talk about inheritance later, so this is a final one, it cannot be inherited by other classes. What about the abstract? The abstract class, if we said it's abstract, it cannot be used to create an object. And we will talk about, when we talk about polymorphism, later we'll talk more about it. It must be inherited from, which means that as if this abstract class, it can have an abstract methods, and which means abstract methods that you define it, but you didn't declare or how this method is going to do what. So just it is an empty method. Why we need this? It will be like a template class that we can go and define it, and later in our code we can make inheritance from this class, and then we redefine the abstract method that is included in this class. We will see it later, inheritance. So this is final or abstract. They don't talk about the access control. They talk more about the restriction, the behavior on this. So I said this class is final, no inheritance can be done. I can't create a child. We will talk about it later about inheritance. No inheritance can be done here. When I talk abstract, so this class cannot be used to create objects. First, we have to inherit from this, and then later we can use it. I will give you examples here. So when we talk about attribute and methods, this one talk about the class. We have also final and static. We all of us know about static, and also abstract. When we talk about abstract methods, as I said, which is in order to have abstract methods, the class itself should be abstract. Static, you know about static, and now we have a discussion about it. Static doesn't talk about, this is what I said. So static doesn't talk about the access control. It is a non-access modifier. It talks about the restriction that you are going to do it. Static variable, static method. So static method, it can be accessed without an object. This is we are make a restriction about the behavior. And the static variable that we talk about, the values is now static. So the value in this case, it will be not unchangeable whenever we have this inheritance later. And final cannot be overridden or modified in this case when we talk about an attribute or a method. So when I said this integer x is a final one or a method, which means that later I cannot change this values. Why we should have sometimes final? Maybe there is a values in a program that they are about the settings of the program, that changing these values during the executing the program will affect how the program is going to execute. So when we go ahead and develop our program, we do it as a final. I have a question. So why me as a programmer have to make a restriction for different classes and methods, saying final, static, public, protected? Why? So I can put everything public and everything okay. Any idea about it? Or can somebody give me an example about it?
Sorry, what was the question? I was putting down note.
Yeah, the question is, now we are talking about final, static, and abstract. We said in final, if we talk about an attribute, it's a final one. In this case, the value for this attribute, it cannot be changed later. And when I talk a method is a final one, we can't override, we can't modify this method later when we make inheritance or when we talk about methods. So the point now, it's out of this lecture, but why we as a programmer, we have to think about modifier, final or static, whatever it is. So we can put everything public or keep it as a default without this headache. Why do we need to have such kind of restrictions when we start writing our code?
I would say, so when it's final, it can't be overridden, right? So let's take an attribute, for example. So you have a final attribute and you need to be able to access it from another class. So if it was default, you wouldn't have been able to access it from that class.
Yes.
But you still need to access it from another class, say. And but you want that attribute to be non-modifiable. So you don't want to be able, you don't want for that attribute to be able to be modified from a different class, but you still need to access that attribute. So if you made it default, sure, you wouldn't be able to modify or change that attribute, but you wouldn't be able to access it in the first place. So I don't know if that made sense. Like you need to be able to access it. But
my question is somehow more practical one. Why I have to think about it and take care about it when I'm programming. Some programmers, maybe a beginner one or intermediate one, they will, when they start coding, they will not take care about the modifier and they will keep it always default or keep it always as a public one. They don't take care about which kind of modifier we have to consider when we start writing our code.
oh, I see.
I can tell you something. There is many reasons for this. One of the reasons that when you write a code, your code later, you are in a company now and you are writing your code, and then this code, it's talk about a special module you are developing it, and this module is going later to be used, and later there is another code it's going to be built in based on this. So if the other party who is going to build another code based on your code, you didn't make any restriction in your code, how it's going to be used later. And then there will be a misuse for the code, and then your code will give some bad results or unexpected results because you didn't make any restriction for this. So when you develop, you should consider all restrictions, because later maybe your code can be used by others to build another code based on this. So you have already 10 classes. I will use your classes to start working with more classes to add them to my program. So I pick up your code and go ahead with further with another list of classes or code. In this case, if you don't make any restriction, and then I start changing some values, and in your code you assume that these values are a final value, should not be changed. In this case, the other person that is going to build your code based on this is going to change them without knowing that it should not, because he doesn't understand your code, and he doesn't know that you assume that you are not going to change. So this is why when you start building your code, you have to consider the whole restriction, because you are not the only person who's going to deal with your code. There are somebody else later maybe going to build another code based on your code. So you should consider all restriction in your code when you are going to go develop your code. So don't make only your assumption without consider there are some other persons going to work with this code. They don't know your own assumption. So you have to put a restriction, all the restriction needed, that any partner or another person is going to work with this code, he doesn't, he has to follow up the restriction that you have already done it, because this restriction will affect the workflow of your code in this case. So let's take more examples about final one. So here there is an error will be generated, for example. So we create a class, we name it main. I said here, final, and this is, by the way, this is a very good reason about a final. So this is pi, all of us know this mathematical value, 3.14. This will never be changed. Pi is always 3.14. Why I have to put it double without having a final one? So here, as we can see, this is a final one. I go ahead, main one, and then I said my object.pi equal 25. So I'm trying to change the value of pi. I will get an error. Cannot assign a value to a final variable. Here the same, if I want to give, so this final variable, normally we will use it. We will not change it because it is final. So you as a programmer, if you know this value should not be changed, because if it will change it, the whole calculation will be incorrect. So later, if in any part in the program, any intent to change the value, there is an error, no change. And again, normally if we write a professional code, we should have a catch error to catch the error and make a message. But here it's out of the scope of what we are talking about. So here, my object.pi equal 25 will give an error because it is a final one and you can change the value. And there is no need to change a value. It is as this is value pi. Pi is always the same value when you talk about mass. Why you have to change it? No need to change it. And now let's talk about static. All of us know about static. So here, main method, main class, and we will have here a method, we name it static method. Here another method, my public method, and the third method. Here this is the main. So we have two methods, and this is we name it static, and this is we name it public. Here we create an object to use to call this method, we name it my public, and here we call this method without any object because this method is static one. So the last one is the abstract one. The abstract one method is to, here we will have abstract class, we name it main. We have variable. If you see here, this method, this class has an abstract method. An abstract class can have abstract method and non-abstract method, but at least it should have abstract methods. So abstract method, that this method, we define it, but we didn't say what it has to do. So here there is another method subclass from the main. When we make this subclass, this method, we are going to define it in the child class. Extend, as I said, it is a child one. We will talk about it later more. So here, when we talk about the class second one, so if I create an object, new student from this class, I can use this object to access name, age, and also the graduation one, and also my study one. But I can't create an object from main and access the study, because first I have to define what has to do with this class before I use it. And in order to do it, because it is an abstract class, I have to create a class inherited from it before I go to this one. I will stop because we almost have now 1 hour and a half. I need you to refresh your mind. I just need very few slides before I go to the classwork. So I will give you this 4:24. We will be back after 10 minutes, so let's say 4:35, 11 minutes, 10 minutes, I will be here. I just will make myself, I will stop sharing and my camera, and after 10 minutes, we will finish this small part we name encapsulation, and we will have a group work. This group work, I will divide you into 2 groups, and we will practice how to code. I will be with you while you are coding, and if you finish correctly this one, you will get bonus to the assignment one. Okay, guys? So we will be back after 10 minutes. Go ahead, maybe pick up a coffee or drink some water, refresh, and be back. So 10 minutes, we will be back. See you soon. So I don't know, still we have somebody here, or we will wait 2 minutes more. Sure. Thank you that you are here. Really, this is asynchronous online classes. I can't believe, I can see myself that I have to go and record, make an offline recording, and then I share this video with a student.
Have you always done online, or is this like some of the first, like since 2020, I guess?
I have been 2 years doing online, but normally online courses, as I do with other courses now, it will be with attendance.
Oh,
but
okay.
UFV, they have asynchronous online courses, so no attendance is required. So most of the courses that I have already taught before, it's with attendance, so there's an interaction with the student.
Oh, okay. And those were online or in person?
No, online. I'm talking online.
Oh,
There's
okay.
no classes. I think that in most of the universities, there's no classes since 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 2 years there was no classes, not only in Canada, in the whole world. So next Monday we will have our first any class in campus class course. Yeah, lecture.
Wait, so we're going on in person on
No,
Monday?
I'm not talking. No. I'm not talking about this course.
Oh.
This course will stay asynchronous online.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the teaching mode for this course is OLO, which is asynchronous online. But there are other courses that the teaching mode was a traditional one. However, because at the beginning of the semester, the number of the cases of the COVID-19 somehow was high, so they shifted online temporarily.
Yeah.
But they'll be back next Monday. So next Monday will be for all of us the first day that we will give in-person classes again.
I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
I don't really like online, at least for my other classes. This is fine. I think coding is actually good online. It's kind of like, it's not too bad, but
yeah,
for the other ones, it's kind of rigorous and.
Yeah, but again, I believe that even though online classes, the students should do their best to attend it. I can't enforce any person to attend the classes.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I can't enforce anyone to do it because it is asynchronous online. However, I don't believe that it will be very boring. I know for myself, if I go to watch video for 2 hours, if it will not be an action film, I will not watch it.
Yeah.
So normally when I watch some tutorials, I will not watch it for 2 hours, 2 hours and a half. I watch for short videos and then I will stop it and go to another video. So I think that the best scenario is for asynchronous online courses, or for online courses, not asynchronous, online courses, the student will be asked to attend it. But again, it is here, the rule here in UFV not to do it.
Yeah.
So we have not to do it in this case. So let's return here. A small part before we will practice and exercise with each other. So let me share my screen again. First, let me make a full screen. I have to do it here. Yeah. So encapsulation. So as I said, encapsulation will be the last topic to talk about it today. It's based on modifier that we have already talked about it. Encapsulation is, so let's talk first what do you mean by encapsulation. It is somehow to make data sensitive from users. Sensitive, encapsulate this data. And if you are, I will not use the word hiding because you really are not hiding this, but maybe you make some restriction about, it will not be full restriction, but let's see, it's some restriction and you differentiate, because so far what we said concerning private, protected, public, we said it can be public, anyone can access it, any class can access under the public, any object from any can access these attributes or these methods can be accessed by, not in the same class, can be accessed by another class. There is no restriction. We said private, that they can be accessed only within the same class. But when we talked before about access, we didn't differentiate between access and writing the value or reading the value. Sometimes you should make a control, not sometimes, it's most of the time, that making a control only not to change the value, but any other classes can go ahead and read the values. So why I have to make a restriction reading these values, since I can make I can make a control for not to override or change the values, because maybe the main concern when we talk about access modifier, it's about not changing the value. So here, you can declare them a private one, and then we can create a public class to access them, for example, not only to read from them. So in this case, we are make this kind of encapsulation using the modifier that we did it, but not to go ahead and make this restriction in the whole type of access, which is read and write. So maybe I can do it for the read only or write only, or I can do it in both in this case. So I am going to use the get and set method. So as we did before, that private one can be accessed within the same class. However, it's possible to access them if we provide public and get method, as we will see. Syntax for them, before I go, let's keep while later, but let's give me an example now, and I will return why you need this encapsulation. So we have a class here, person. So, and we will have another, but here in this class person, we have a get name. We are going to access the name, and here set name. We are going to use it to change the name. By the way, most of when we talk about OOP, most of the time we should have get and set values. So person class, get name, set name. So get name, it will be retain the name. Set name, it will be to change the name according to the values that I will pass it in the parameter here. Here we have two pieces of code. The first one will make an error, and the second one, no error will be here. Let's see why this will make an error. So this will make an error because if you see here, I go ahead and create an object person. This is in another class. This is the first class person. And this is another class main. And this is another version for main. So in this class main, we go ahead and create an object new person. It is a public one, so we create object, and then we said object.name equal John. We will get an error. Why? We said the why. Because name is a private, and since it is a private, you can't access it or change it out of the class where you are. So what about here, this one? Here, I create an object in this class, person. However, rather than changing directly the peer, I can do it as a set name and pass this one. And then I will output get name by accessing it again. I will get the output John that I have already passed here. So the point now here, say why this is correct, where this is not correct. This is incorrect because we are accessing private attribute directly out of the class where they are declared. We are in the second class main. Here, we are accessing them using a public method. So can we imagine now that maybe sometimes we can make a set name, use it, and then sometimes get name, and maybe sometimes a set name we will not do it public, do it private. So the encapsulation in this case can make this class read only if you only use a get name, or write only if you use a set method. So using the modifier alone without get and set, in this case, either you will make an access not to write and read this method if it is a private outside the class, or keep it that anyone can write and read if it is a public one. But using the get and set, I can make a control for reading or writing it, making it writing only or reading it. So if it is a sensitive data in this case, I want others to see it. So I can they can access other classes, they can access using the get method without having, for example, an access to the set method in this case. So this is why you should always have this get set method to go ahead and access these attributes, and they will be public one whenever you will have a private one. And then now you will be in the middle way, not to be very restricted only private one, and not to be only all public one. Even though protected one, there will be inheritance here. Here, there is no need to make inheritance. So if it is another class want to access the attributes for the other private one, you have already put get and set, and then you as a programmer, you will make a restriction to which one they can use it. So if you want to use only get, so you make the get public, and there is no set one, or set one will be private in this, but normally get and set will do it public to make this access control. Before we will go today, I will be very happy if we will practice an exercise, and I will be with you to do it. So I think that we can be two groups here. So the exercise is very easy one. So you have a rectangle, just to let you know how you can create classes and methods, and then how you can do. So we will have a rectangle, and you will have a circle. So here you will have a method name area, and the parameter of the rectangle length and width. Here we'll have a radius, and also you'll have a method name area. And then we will have another class, let's name it test, or main one. So in this class main one, you are going to call the method for the area one, and call the method for the area one, and pass parameters, whatever parameter we choose it, and then you calculate the area based on the parameters that we will pass it. So we are dealing with three different classes. We first one rectangle, circle, and then we will have the main one. The main one has a main, we will have the main method. And in the main method, you are going to call the area method that you have declared on both of them. and pass a values and get the output as an area for the rectangle and the one. And there is attribute you are going to do it. So it is a very simple exercise just to know how we can create classes and methods. We can also we have to use get and set for them. So we have to do get and set for them for this one. And then we're using get and set and this area method, we are going to do it. I will share with you that today, like always, after I break you down, and I will be with you to finish this exercise, and we will share with the others also the solution for this exercise when we will upload the lecture in this case. So are you ready for this?
Yes.
Yes, let's go. I will break you down to 2 and automatically I will do it. Let me change this something else. Why it doesn't do it? Kirsten, and so I will assign you also. Yeah, I just opened them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you should now leave it. I don't know why it take a long time. Normally it will take less time.
No, I had a question and I was starting and
yeah, maybe I will be with you there. Guys, you are here back. So yes, it is now, we can close the rooms.
yeah, we're here.
So it's, you are saying we are here, so you are very motivated to
Oh,
let
sorry.
us see what.
Yeah.
No, you are very motivated to let us see what you have already finished. It seems that you have some correct solution to see it or to show it to us.
Yeah. So we didn't use the get length and width. Here, I'll just show you.
Yeah, so I think get area and set area is the main point that we are more that we needed. I think. Go ahead. Let me show you. Let me see you.
So here we go. All right. So first we made a public static class called square, and it has 3 private attributes, one for length, one for width, and one for area. And then our set dimensions, which is like called in this or in the main method, has parameters of width input and length input. And then we set the private attributes to the inputs or the parameters. And then here we calculate the area using those parameters. And then we set the area, so the private attribute equal to the area. And then we have the only get function that we use is the get area. Since we already calculated the area, we don't need the width and to get the width and the length. And then we did the same for the circle. So we have the radius, the area, and then we also have pi, which is our final double. And we do the same thing for the area. We calculate it from the set radius method. And then we have our double get area, which is returns the area. And then here in the main method, we create a square object and then we create a circle object. And then we set the dimensions of our square object to like whatever number. I just put in 7 and 9 here. And then the radius to whatever number. And then we print out the square area and the circle area using the get area functions. So I'll run it. And then down here, we have the square and circle area.
Perfect. We get the bonus. You have 2 bonus today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you have +10. I should add this. Let me take. Hi. Perfect. Yes. I'm very happy that you have already done it in a very quick way and quickly. And
well, it was both me and Gan. So.
Yeah, you and and Gan. Yeah, sure. Both of you. So, and I'm also happy that you were motivated to do it. The other team, I was with you in the room. Maybe Jason, not Jason.
Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, he has a silly problem with the main method. He forgot to add the static one. It doesn't work in this case. Is it working now, Jason?
Still no.
Okay, guys, that's all for today. I will share the solution with the lecture when I uploaded it. If you still have any question, I'm happy to answer your questions. And I will always encourage you to join the live sessions because we will have bonus for the group that they will do it. I will add this bonus to the assignments. And it will be a good opportunity that you will discuss with me whatever troubles you will facing for the code. For the people that they can join the live session, they still can have one-to-one meeting with me using the virtual office. And if they have a question and they can be in the one-to-one meeting, they can send me an email. I will be happy to reply this.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So because we got the 10 points, do I still get the 5 points?
No, I said 10 points because 5 plus 5, it's 10.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you will get 5 as a group, and you will get plus 5 individually, so it will be plus 10.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Do you still have any question for me? If not, give me 2 thumbs up to leave today, or I will stay. Okay, guys. Enjoy it. Have a nice evening. Take care, all.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.